Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Well, welcome everyone. As you can see, I'm actually outdoors today, just trying something different, and I think I'm taking a bit of a risk with this one because I'm trying to hotspot this off of 4Gs, but Steve, you're coming through nice and clear at the moment, so hopefully it'll remain that way through the episode. And just testing some other things too. So the M1 MacBook that I got that we've talked about before has studio microphones built in, or so Apple says. So I'm keen to kind of test how good they are, and I'm kind of maybe in a way stressing it a little bit because I'm putting it in an environment where there is a lot of noise around. So you may hear a tram go by like right now, for instance, or cars or people, or thankfully there's no wind, so I don't have to have the windsock out for any reason. But it'll be an interesting experiment to say the least, and just to break things up and do something different, so I can show that I can do a setup anywhere kind of thing.
You're looking good, Ben. You're sounding great, and it's good to see you outdoors after so many months indoors. So.
Well, that's an added benefit. We're allowed to go outside these days. All right, so got a couple of topics to cover today. One that I wanted to start with, which I just actually was, I watched a clip about this just before we started actually, which was this story about Google locking down Chromium is probably a strong term for it, but effectively they're saying that, because there's so many browsers that base themselves off of the Chromium core, there was some features that that these other browsers have innovated on that have caused Google to be a little concerned that might take market share away from Chrome, so they did a bit of tweaking to lock some things up, and which obviously led to the inevitable discussion around what does that mean? Is that any good for anyone apart from Google? Are they trying to, be a bit too controlling in this instance?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's open source, but it's their platform.
Yeah.
It's one of those really vexed questions. Apple doesn't have anything, I think, quite as open sourced as say Chromium. Is it a sign of the way Google's thinking? Probably. And some of the features also probably that Chromium core is being used for is ad blocking. So I guess that you can probably see why. I don't really know what it means to the community, or I guess the software community, but it's definitely a statement that Google wants to pursue a particular direction.
Yeah.
And maybe they're looking to take a more Apple-based approach.
Yeah, well, one thing in their favour anyway is a kind of market incumbency, or if you want to call it that, because I think pretty much everyone kind of defaults to Chrome these days. It's not like the 90s when Internet Explorer used to be the thing, but a vast majority are using Chrome. I know you're not, but we're not quite in the I use 4 browsers, so at any one time, so I'm not sort of locked into one, but I can understand that for most people they just want one browser and they just go with it. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
It'll be very interesting, and once again, you wonder what's driving these changes, and there must be something in the background that's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, segueing on to a completely different topic, and I guess this is kind of emblematic of the culture at the moment in terms of how things blow up online, and people taking sides about what's happening, and how it sort of goes down these political lenses. But the company that publishes Dr Seuss books announced that they were no longer going to be publishing 6 particular books because of racist or offensive imagery, which is entirely within their right to do. Maybe they've just said, look, we don't want to publish these anymore given the environment that we're in now. And what I thought was now, and again, that's entirely up to them to do, they're within their rights to do that, but I was more fascinated by the response. So immediately people went down 2 different sort of lines of argument, one being, yes, this was a really good thing to do because these books are out of date, they were written at a time when these sort of things were acceptable, and now they're not, so we shouldn't be giving kids access to these things, etc., etc., etc. And then there's the other side that's claiming cancel culture, and going absolutely nuts. And I have to say, blowing it completely out of proportion, given that when I looked at it a bit more closely, I can't even remember these particular titles. Like, I don't think they're at the sort of like the top of the list of his most famous entries, perhaps.
Look, you know, this is really probably a slightly Dr. Seuss way of looking at the internet, you know, and the people on it. Look, I'm sure both sides have got a point, but you never see anybody contribute to these discussions saying, I don't really understand what this is about. I'd like to learn more. You know, like it's, you know, people just take a side and then pile on. You know, who knows? Maybe the reason that they've pulled these 6 books is because they didn't sell anyway. You know, if you can't see the offensive material in Dr. Seuss, is it because you've been brainwashed, or is it because it was never there? You know, it is part of our internet culture. I don't necessarily think it's a cancel culture mentality. I just think that it's a polarizing sort of mentality. And for I'll say this, that the more trivial the instance, not the cause, but the more trivial the instance, such as something that's highly subjective in a book that's been around 50 years, and I do think it's a trivial instance, that the greater the fight, because, you know, there's really nothing at stake. And I think that's what's happening here.
Well, I mean, I think that's what concerns me about society right now, is that there's the almost eradication of rational kind of discussion and thinking about anything. You can't have I mean, we're trying to have that discussion right now, as we do each week, about things, and I'm sure that even if we got into a full-blown argument about a topic, we probably have the ability to listen to each other's side to try and, you know, understand everything more, to try and get to not a consensus, but maybe an understanding or whatever. But the fact that so many people are just so quick to go straight to a side without thinking just doesn't, I guess, bode well for the future,
of society.
if it's gonna go down that route.
Well, precisely. And what I mean in this particular instance is nobody is going to take the time to write a 10-page, well-thought-out reason as to why that's offensive. They're just going to point and scream. And then the other side just points and starts screaming as well.
Yeah.
And if that's meant to be any level of culture or thoughtfulness or communication or, you know, understanding, no, it just simply doesn't. And you know, whichever side you're on, I just can't see either of your points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess maybe in the future we might end up calling ourselves SciTech Outrage, perhaps, instead of SciTech Culture.
We have to run around screaming at everything then.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we can do that without any issues. All right, and just finally, again, completely different topic, returning to SpaceX and Elon Musk's efforts to, you know, get rockets up, and I think this is in light too of the fact that, you know, that all those stories about the rovers going to Mars and all that stuff and all that exciting talk, and he's still attempting to do a landable rocket after it's
a range of useful rockets.
And another story of one that I guess landed briefly before exploding, and obviously, you know, there's lots of trial and error to get these things right. They got to do testing and etc. And eventually they may get to a point where it's correct. Hopefully, you know, the carbon fiber space elevators in place before we have to go to this technology. But having said that, I can see the need to, you know, potentially look at this as an option, but it just occurs to me that if all you see is test after test after test of the landing rocket blowing up on return, I don't know if that exactly instills confidence in anyone.
No, look, I completely agree. And being a member of the internet, hey, who doesn't want to pile on and stick it up Elon, hey? Ha, ha, ha. But in all seriousness, isn't it interesting? Because you'll never get to a safe rocket that performs this landing every time. without seeing these catastrophes. And in the modern age, we can't hide these catastrophes. You know, they're televised live, they're recorded live. You know, they're unavoidable in terms of people knowing that something that big.
They can't test them in Area 51 anymore.
No, that's precisely right. And we're also so accustomed now, I think, to the idea of success. So the only things that are reported are success. You know, who knows how many variations of Coke Zero they had to go through that tasted awful until they got to something that didn't taste quite so bad. You know, like I'm sure this occurs everywhere, from food products to new inventions. I mean, how many iPhones didn't work before Steve Jobs finally got one that did? And we all know that most Android phones didn't work at all until a few years ago. So, you know, but nobody hypes on the failure. They only hype on the successes. So I think this is a case of that. I think, you know, Elon said it, and it's been said the whole way through, you know, the rich history of space exploration, that you have to expect this. If you're going to push the limits, if you're really going to try to do something spectacular and amazing that has deep meaning, more so than just cancelling a book on the internet, you're going to have to take the good with the bad. And I think we saw that with the failed Mars probes in the 90s. And, you know, once again, we're seeing Elon trying to get this right, or SpaceX trying to get this right. And it ain't easy, but they certainly achieved it. This was something that happened after the rocket landed. Geez, I wouldn't have been wanting to have been a space tourist waiting to disembark at that point.
Maybe it can explode after disembarkation is concluded. And again, that's an interesting point, like again, like tying it in with the Dr. Seuss stuff, like that instant sort of reaction, and the fact that, you know, a part of, I guess, the human experience is to fail before you, I guess, succeed, or maybe you, and actually that there's nothing wrong in failure because you can learn from something from it. But it seems like we're barreling towards a place where it's just not accepted anymore. Like if you get it wrong out of the gate straight up, you're toast, kind of thing.
That's right. And let's face it, Elon, if nothing else, has made himself a very easy target. You know, he's got his fans that are on one side of the fence, and then you got everyone else who's on the other side of the fence. And it's getting back to our Dr. Seuss point. You've just got two points of view. Nothing substantial in this. No real thought. It's just, I like Elon, I don't like Elon. And whatever happens, you just pick the side and pile on.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, might wrap it up there. Well, I'm glad your feed managed to maintain throughout the entire episode here, despite being on a hot spot. I'm encouraged by that, so I might have to try this again next week, assuming you know, the weather's good and all that sort of thing.
Well, it's very impressive, Ben. Very impressive to see technology now at this level. This is a new step for SciTech Culture.
Absolutely. Not SciTech Outrage like we were suggesting before. All right, we'll wrap it up there. So again, don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. All of our content's on there, links, etc. You can get all of through there, all of our videos and audio, and watch them on any and all of your devices. And you can do that anywhere now because of, you know, like I said, the technology that we've gotten. It's just fantastic. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.